Hello, I'm Bernie.
And I'm Melissa, and welcome back to another episode of EVTV.
Last episode, we presented a commentary about the physical education requirements to graduate. This opinion piece sparked a lot of conversation.
A commentary is where our reporters express their opinions, but with a news piece, it's just facts, no opinions.
There's still a lot to understand about the graduation requirements. This week, Brian and Carter go out and do a news report on what they are and how they've changed.
After diving into the PE requirements last episode, Carter and I became curious as to exactly how our requirements come to be. To start, we go to Ms. Boki.
It happens at the state level, and the Colorado Department of Education comes up with what they think is best, and then they put it out to each of the school districts, and then our school board takes the requirements or guidelines from the state and then determines what they want it to look like in our school district.
But through our research, we found that in recent years, new graduation requirements have been put in place. The current upperclassmen have the same requirements that Eagle Valley High School students have had for years, but current underclassmen and future students have 3 slight changes in order to receive their high school diploma. Let's go over them. 1, they are required to take 1 credit of foreign language. Pretty self-explanatory. Number 2, they are required to have 1 credit of practical skills.
Practical skills was intended to include and incentivize students to expand their course schedules and get into things like technology classes and culinary classes and fine arts.
Students also have to show competency in English and math in one of many ways.
There's multiple standards. It looks like a menu. So students can show competency through a number of different assessments. SAT, ACT, ASVAB, Accuplacer that you would take to get into CMC classes. You could also demonstrate it by passing an AP class, an IB program, or a dual enrollment class. And there's some other alternative measures that kids can demonstrate if they have individual learning plans.
The goal of the new requirements is to better prepare students for their after high school pursuits. It's for this very reason that a list of suggested requirements have been put out for college readiness.
Now, there are requirements that are recommended by the Colorado Commission on Higher Education, and that group outlines what types of credits and how many students should be taking in order to be prepared and to have a competitive chance at acceptance into states, colleges, and universities.
To find the new graduation requirements, go to the Eagle County Schools website, click on Employees, Administration Policies, and then under Section I, there is a document labeled IKF. You can also talk to your counselors with any questions.
It's helpful to understand how the district decided to make the graduation requirements. I'm glad I got a variety of courses at my time at EVHS. This week, Alondra got to talk to one of the faces that we see every day, but who few of us have actually gotten to know.
We meet campus supervisor and football coach Gabe Brown.
Here at Eagle Valley, students wander the halls, not knowing the treasures that they could find. One of the treasures we found impacting the community is Mr. Gabe Brown.
So I'm the new campus supervisor here, so I help out with the SRO and the principal with monitoring students in the hallways, as well as making sure they're getting to class on time and just kind of checking in on students, seeing how they're doing. Yeah, so that's what part of campus supervisor is. So, I do a lot of monitoring. We have, not a lot of students know this, but we have 48 active cameras in the school. So I monitor those, make sure students are where they're supposed to be.
Before arriving here to be the new football coach and security, Mr. Brown was in the military, where he learned valuable lessons.
In the U.S. Army for 7 years, combat medic. I did 2 combat tours, and that's helped forge who I am too as well, just as far as work ethic and accountability. I really use that with our players, so we use Team Unit Me, which is, team, and then being able to work for a unit, and then how you fit into that as a me. And so it all interplays with each other. So Team Unit Me goes back to me, unit, and team. So I really try to do that. I think, some of the players I bark at them like a drill sergeant, but high expectations.
Mr. Brown influences many around him, especially those closest to him.
He is very intelligent, compassionate, extremely loving, kind. He's passionate and dedicated to everything he does. He doesn't do anything halfway, and he's a ton of fun. I've learned a lot from him. We have some similarities in background and some different. He's from a big city and he was in the military, so he is always monitoring safety and He's also taught me to be a little tougher because he watches out for people that are trying to take advantage or people that have ulterior motives. And sometimes I'm a little too nice, so I get scammed.
Before Mr. Brown even started, he was already leaving an incredible impression on our staff.
Well, I actually interviewed him over the phone long before we ever met in person. So
What was his impression?
it was great. It was this intense guy that had a love for not just football, but the kids. All he could talk about was, you know, football in his life and what it's done for kids. And he talked about it. It was off season when we were talking, and he was telling me stories about how he was working with kids in the weight room and what they were doing. You could just feel the excitement come through him.
The impact Mr. Brown is leaving on his players these 3 short months is profound.
Coach Brown, real good actually. He's super cool. It's kind of a love-hate relationship, I guess, because he's kind of a pretty intense coach, but also a lovable coach.
My relationship with Coach Brown has just been something he's just impacted my life, out of all the coaches the most. He's been there for me, he's always had my back, and I could always rely on him, just tell him whatever I need to, and he can always just pick me up. I could be having the crappiest practice in the world, and he just looks at me and he'll yell at me or he'll tell me something, and I'll just immediately just snap back into just let's go. So.
With Coach Brown, I would say he's kind of an authoritative figure to me. I mean, I look up to him a lot in many different ways. I can ask him anything I'd like, and he's always got my back, which is really good bond that you're supposed to have with a coach. So yeah, I'd say our relationship is really strong, especially with the things we've gone through this season.
Overall, Brown's goal is to impact the community and influence the culture here at Eagle Valley.
I try to live in the moment, but I'm excited about the school that we work in, and I'm excited about our football team, and not only as a football team, but these young men have grown a lot, and I feel like they're pretty active in the community. I think it's awesome. A lot of them go to different games and, a part of the cheer squad, and that's awesome. I love seeing the student body do that. It's been different. We're changing the culture here. In the past, it's been acceptable to just roll over and get beat up and not compete in games. And with a new coaching staff, we're more competitive, more intense, and are changing the culture here. So, I'm just happy to be here. I'm glad to fit in and look for big things in the future from our football program, but as well as the students here. You guys are doing great things, and man, that's awesome.
This has been Alondra Escobar. Back to you in the studio.
That's all we have for you this week.
We'll see you next week.